What initially seemed like a routine mission on the International Space Station quickly turns into a real nightmare when the astronauts witness the outbreak of a nuclear war on Earth between their respective nations. As if that weren't bad enough, the orders from both sides are clear. They must continue the conflict in space. The movie begins with a brief introduction to the International Space Station, also known as the ISS. After the end of the Cold War, the ISS became a symbol of cooperation between the United States and Russia, former enemies. This station is mainly used for scientific research, where astronauts from different countries work together to advance space science. To this day, Americans and Russians live together on the ISS, regardless of the tensions that may be happening on Earth. Aboard the Soyuz spacecraft, we meet Kira Foster and Christian Campbell, two NASA astronauts sent to the ISS, with this being Kira's first space mission. Meanwhile, we see some toys floating in the cabin, a gift from Christian's daughters. Upon arriving at the station, they are enthusiastically welcomed by their new crew, composed of American Commander Gordon Barr, Russian astronaut Veronika Vedrovnik, and Russian engineer Alexei Pulovare, who greet them warmly. This marks the beginning of what seems to be a relationship of camaraderie. Kira begins practicing her Russian with Veronika's help, who teaches her an important phrase: "What matters is that we stay united." At that moment, Gordon approaches to check Kira's progress, though he seems more interested in chatting with her. Shortly after, he shows her to her sleeping area, which is actually a narrow cabin with few comforts, and explains that the constant sound of the life support system is crucial. If it stops, something serious is wrong. Each astronaut has a small safe for storing important projects, and Kira is given a key that only opens the American compartments. As she settles in, Alexei approaches to introduce himself as the other biological engineer aboard, meaning they will be working together on several projects. One of these involves mice, and although Kira is optimistic, Alexei is more skeptical, thinking the experiment could go wrong. What they don't know is that something much bigger is about to test more than just their scientific skills. A war on Earth that will soon reach them in space. Since the rodents have nothing to cling to in this environment, it doesn't seem comfortable for them to be floating all day. Faced with Alexei's pessimism, Kira prefers to spend more time with Christian and the rest of the crew. It seems work is not their priority, as they spend the day joking, playing, and even organizing a fun karaoke session. I wonder if they'll stay in such good spirits when they find out what's in store for them. During karaoke, they sing a song that has one meaning for the Americans and a very different one for the Russians, which creates some tension between Gordon and Alexei. However, both remember a sacred rule on the station: no politics. And what better way to celebrate their camaraderie than with a bottle of liquor? That's how you drink in space. To end the day, they take Kira to the observatory, known as the cupola. From there, they have an impressive view of Earth, and Kira experiences what they call the overview effect. She sees no borders, divisions, or differences, just one big blue sphere that is home to all humans. Or at least most of them. When it's time to sleep, Kira has trouble falling asleep due to the cramped space. Opening the door isn't a great idea either, as seeing Christian tossing and turning in his sleep isn't exactly relaxing. Noticing her discomfort, Veronika helps her settle into her bed better and suggests she imagine that a divine force is holding her while she sleeps. After a rough first night, Kira goes to check on the mice in her experiment, only to find that they are dying for some unknown reason. Frustrated, she heads back to the cupola to reflect, but this time the view is far from peaceful. From there, she witnesses a huge explosion, which she initially identifies as a volcanic eruption. But if that were true, it seems that all the volcanoes in the United States erupted at the same time. In an attempt to communicate with Earth, she receives no response. If the internet connection was bad before, now it's non-existent. Anxiety begins to take hold of the astronauts, each one worried about their loved ones, while the radio silence only worsens the situation. Finally, Gordon manages to receive a signal from the US government. It's an encrypted message revealing that Russia has launched a nuclear attack on the US, sparking an unprecedented nuclear war. The American astronauts are ordered to seize control of the International Space Station at any cost, as it has become a crucial strategic point in the conflict. I repeat, at any cost. The commander tries to hide his fear and paranoia, but the tension is palpable. Gordon begins to distrust his Russian colleagues almost immediately. When he tries to ask for more details, the station experiences a sudden power outage, a consequence of the nuclear explosions on Earth. Although the power cut lasts only a few seconds, the situation doesn't bode well. In private, Gordon gathers his fellow Americans to inform them about the orders he received. Given how extreme the instructions are, they decide to wait for communications to be restored to get more information, especially regarding the meaning of "at any cost." Christian, thinking quickly, realizes that if they received such a message, it's likely the Russians received similar orders. Just then, Veronica enters to inform them that there's a serious problem with the station. The explosions that caused the blackout also damaged the ISS's thrusters. These aren't usually essential, but before Kira and Christian arrived, the crew had requested mission control to lower the station's altitude slightly to receive supplies faster. The problem now is that they've lost communication with the control center, and they're in a dangerously low orbit. If they don't receive help within the next 24 hours, they could end up falling back to Earth. Alexei suggests using the Soyuz spacecraft to return to Earth, but there's only room for a few, and it would be very risky to go back without knowing exactly what's happening on the surface. With nerves on edge, Kira steps in to calm the crew, reminding them that losing control would only make the situation worse. Thanks to that moment of calm, Nikolai realizes that a communications antenna is damaged. Someone will have to go out and repair it manually, as it's the only way to restore contact with Earth. With determination, Gordon volunteers, while Veronica wishes him luck with a kiss, once again leaving Kira as an observer. As Gordon prepares to go outside, Christian questions whether it's suspicious that none of the Russians volunteered for the task. However, Gordon isn't interested in hearing more conspiracy theories. He has a job to do, and he's going to do it. Once outside the station, Gordon is faced with a terrifying sight. What was once a beautiful blue planet has turned into a fiery red inferno, the result of nuclear bombs continuing to ravage the surface. Frightened, he asks Kira to make sure no one looks out the windows, to protect their mental health. Meanwhile, Christian keeps a close eye on Alexei, who has been acting strangely. When the Russian goes to the bathroom, Christian takes the opportunity to watch the rest of the crew elsewhere in the station. At that moment, Alexei leaves his hiding spot to try something suspicious. Back with Gordon, he struggles to control his nerves as he carries out the emergency spacewalk, which is no easy task. Kira, aware of his state, tries to distract him by keeping the conversation going. Gordon talks about how he fell in love with Veronica when he arrived at the station, while Alexei, at the same time, moves towards the communication cables with the intention of cutting them. However, he hesitates at the last moment. As Gordon continues his task, he asks Kira to change the topic so he can concentrate better. Wondering why Kira switched from being a biologist to joining the Marines, Gordon learns that her motivation stems from a personal tragedy. After her father died while waiting for an organ transplant, Kira dedicated herself to studying the creation of artificial organs with her partner, hoping to prevent other families from suffering the same fate. However, her research always failed due to issues with the cells. Of course, in space, those problems don't exist, which explains her current experiment with mice. As for her partner, their relationship ended when she discovered she was being unfaithful. Since then, Kira has been on her own, facing the world by herself. Upon hearing her story, Gordon thanks her for her honesty and assures her that this team will not betray her. With those words, he continues his mission towards the communications antenna, though he doesn't receive any more words of encouragement. As he detaches from the harness to move forward, he notices the station's robotic arm moving toward him. He tries to signal that he doesn't need the tool, but no one can hear him. Nikolai is controlling the arm, and his intentions are clear. Realizing the communications antenna is perfectly fine, Gordon is pushed by the robotic arm, throwing him away from the station and into the empty void of space. Meanwhile, Kira and Veronica continue trying to reconnect with Gordon, unaware that they've lost him forever. Christian, peeking out a window, spots Gordon floating, but unfortunately, there's nothing they can do for him. Although Kira insists that he might still be alive and volunteers to go out and search for him, Christian makes it clear that he must already be dead, and they will meet the same fate if they don't leave the station immediately. Now, they are surrounded by enemies. Veronica, on her part, demands an explanation from her Russian colleagues, who finally reveal the truth. The nuclear war has begun on Earth, and Nikolai was ordered to seize control of the station. Alexei is also involved in the plan. Unlike them, Veronica doesn't let her patriotism blind her and accuses them of killing an innocent man. Back with the Americans, Kira refuses to believe that the Russians killed Gordon, despite Christian's warnings. Their argument is interrupted by Veronica, who asks for a moment alone with Kira. Being the newest member on the station, Veronica sees Kira as the only person she can trust. She reveals that Alexei has been working on a cure for diseases caused by nuclear radiation, which makes his research crucial for humanity's future. The side that obtains the cure could survive the nuclear war, while the other will inevitably perish. Even so, Kira pretends not to know anything about the conflict or any plans to seize the station, assuring Veronica that Gordon never mentioned anything about it. However, Just before Veronica leaves, Kira feels guilty and confesses the truth. Veronica, shocked, reveals that they received the same orders. This means that Alexei and Nikolai were responsible for Gordon's death. With everything now clear, the two women plan their escape from the station, taking the cure research with them. After exchanging keys, Veronica gives Kira instructions on the next steps for their escape. Veronica tells Kira to use her key to open Alexei's locker and take his notes. Once she's done, Kira must go to Node 0, where the research samples are stored. Kira is fully on board with the plan until Veronica mentions that only Kira will be able to return to Earth on the Soyuz. Although Kira doesn't want to leave Veronica behind, the Russian assures her that, by confiding in her, she's shown that Kira is the only one worth saving. While Kira continues her part of the plan, Veronica opens the oxygen vents and threatens her Russian colleagues with setting the entire station on fire, keeping them distracted. Meanwhile, Kira is surprised by Christian, who asks her to go find the cure in Node 0. However, he reveals that there is no such thing as Node 0 on the station. Veronica had been lying to her all along. With the possibility that Veronica might set fire to the station, Alexei, in a calm tone, reminds her to think about her family, assuring her that they wouldn't want her to make such a drastic decision. Veronica, distrustful, attacks Alexei with a wrench. In the midst of the fight, Christian suddenly appears and strikes Veronica in the head, killing her instantly. He justifies his actions by saying that she was going to destroy the station, but that doesn't help calm the Russians. Hiding alongside Kira, Christian asks her to promise that they'll stay together until the end. Although Kira has her doubts, Christian only wants to return home to his daughters. Convinced, Kira agrees to join him in planning their escape from the station. As they prepare, Nikolai swears revenge for Veronica's death, although Alexei opposes this, believing they've already caused enough suffering. Despite his compatriot's objection, Nikolai is determined to fulfill what he considers his duty as a Russian citizen. Wandering through the corridors, Alexei arrives at the security camera area and discovers something incredible. Gordon is still alive, clinging to a solar panel. He immediately contacts the Americans, who, for obvious reasons, do not leave their hiding place, believing it to be a trap. With no other option, Alexei takes control of the robotic arm and manages to bring Gordon back inside the station. Just as Nikolai appears armed with a screwdriver, Christian throws a Rubik's Cube to distract him, temporarily driving him away from their refuge. However, they know they can't hide forever, so they decide to act. While trying to reach the Soyuz spacecraft, Kira encounters Alexei, who, instead of attacking her, helps her hide from Nikolai, who is bloodthirsty. Nikolai tries to get the Americans' attention by claiming that Veronica survived, but luckily, they don't fall for the trap. Annoyed by Nikolai's behavior, Alexei demands that he stop tarnishing the name of their deceased colleague. At that moment, the Rubik's Cube accidentally reveals Christian's hiding spot. Nikolai lunges to attack him, but Kira reappears, pushes the Russian, and tries to escape. Just as Nikolai catches up to her, Gordon finally wakes from his daze. Gordon, after saving Kira, desperately confronts Nikolai to protect her. Filled with anguish, he asks about Veronica, and it's Alexei who, heartbroken, reveals that she has died. Overcome with rage, the commander locks himself in the module with Nikolai and attacks him, believing that he was responsible for the death of his beloved. While the others try to open the module door, the American and the Russian engage in a fierce fight to the death. And to think people said the Cold War was over. During the brutal battle, Nikolai drills into Gordon's stomach, to which Gordon responds by stabbing a screwdriver into Nikolai's neck. Both fall together, dying in what appears to be an ironic, almost fraternal embrace. By the time Kira and the others manage to enter the module, they are met with the bloody scene of both bodies. After laying them to rest, the astronauts find themselves in a kind of limbo, unable to think clearly due to the pain and confusion. Eventually, Kira is the first to leave her cabin to check the station's altitude, only to confirm that they are at a point of no return. While inspecting the station in search of a miracle, she finds a clue. A sign on the door of the Japanese experimental module with the word "Node" written in marker. This confirms that Veronica wasn't lying, and it also implies something else. Christian was. Furious, Kira bursts into Christian's cabin demanding answers. Although he isn't there, she discovers a Soyuz spacesuit hidden away, along with Alexei's research concealed in a sleep capsule. It's clear that Christian was planning to escape without telling anyone. Just then, Kira realizes that she can no longer hear the life support system's fan, meaning it has been deactivated. Hiding her nerves, Kira approaches Christian, who seems to be calmly preparing a sandwich as if nothing is wrong. He remarks that they will be hailed as heroes when they return to Earth. When Kira asks if he truly believes they can return, Christian responds that they will, but only if she gives them space on the Soyuz. He then accuses her of planning to escape behind their backs. Meanwhile, Alexei watches the situation unfold, unsure whose side to take. Kira discreetly signals to Alexei that the life support system is off. The Russian confirms this by stopping the music, putting Christian in a vulnerable position. In an attempt to keep things calm, Kira begins making a sandwich and asks Christian to hand her the knife. Christian complies, but before doing so, he says something to Alexei in Russian, asking him to leave them alone. It seemed as if Alexei was about to obey, but Kira recalls the words Veronica had taught her. What matters is that we stay united. This phrase makes Alexei change his mind and side with Kira. Together, they manage to confront Christian and defeat him in an intense struggle. After Kira tends to her wound, Alexei reactivates the life support system. However, they can't do much more given the situation on Earth. Meanwhile, Kira observes the remaining mice from her experiment, trapped in the net she set up for them. Moved, Alexei comments that it's comforting to have something to hold on to in times like these. Surprisingly, communications with Mission Control begin to restore themselves, offering a small glimmer of hope. The communications come back online on their own, and fortunately, the station's altitude stabilizes. Both the US and Russian governments request confirmation from the astronauts that they have completed their mission to take control of the ISS. Without responding to their superiors, Kira and Alexei decide not to follow through with the plan. They board the Soyuz with the valuable research and descend toward Earth, with no clear destination in sight.